So, of course, the political season has taken off, so many of the stories were around that and the registration exercise. So let's start with City Newsroom and see some of the stories they captured around these issues during the week. And they have Mahama's record of incompetence has already spoken very loudly. This is the Vice President, Dr. Bawumia, speaking. Still on the City Newsroom, CI for ROPA yet to be considered by Parliament's Legislation Committee. An MP speaking over there. Also, with City Newsroom, NDC demands independent audit of newly compiled voters register. We'll move away from City Newsroom and go to My Joy Online. They say mistrust among political actors contributing to electoral violence. Reverend Asante speaking. The Daily Graphic, be EC confident of credible register, nearly 17 million voters captured. The Ghanaian Times, at the end of voter registration exercise, Greater Accra, Ashanti top electoral roll with over 3.5 million and 3 million voters respectively. The Daily Guide, NPP fires hate for vote NDC campaign. Let's go to the Chronicle. They say new register vindicates us, says MPP. Also, they have the NDC PDS collected 1.5 billion cedis, but money not accounted for. Away from the Chronicle, back to the Daily Graphic, about acrimonious politics, Catholic bishops and treat. Let's move to the Finder. They have 2020 voters registration exercise, most violent in history. This is a CDD speaking. They also have this on their front page. NDC left huge outstanding bills. That's the Education Minister Napo speaking over there. We move to the Finder. It says MPP's bloated voters register position vindicated. John Boydo, their General Secretary, speaking over there. To the Informer and says Church Street cabal damages Mahama campaign and pursues Agenda 2024 Mahama Ok's registration exercise. Daily Post. Massive crowd greets Professor Nana as she begins Greater Accra region tour. Affected customers deny Akufo-Addo's claim that 98% of locked up funds have been paid. Let's go to the Herald. Let's see some of their top stories. They say NPP's MPs armed thug busted for almost killing NDC man. Still with that paper, they have another story, and they say as lawmaker also accused of slapping district police commander during EC registration. Let's wrap up these political stories with the Daily Statesman. Their story is babies with sharp teeth won 2008 for Mills. Ahoy accuses Rollins of Beasley scheming for his wife. Also, they have we are vindicated over bloated register. There's the MPP speaking. We end the top stories with sanitation in Ghana and go to City Newsroom following some report on the sewer system at Tema. It says angry residents demand total overhaul of poor sewer system at Tema. Still on sanitation and still with City Newsroom, they say we need $60 million to fix poor sewer system in Tema. That's the TMA speaking. Let's go to My Joy Online, and the sanitation minister says we are 85% through with making Accra the cleanest city in Africa. And let's wrap up with the Ghanaian Observer. Government steps up effort to rid Accra drains over flooding outbreak of diseases. So those are the big stories for the week. Two to do with politics, one on the elections proper in terms of campaign, and the other to do with the registration exercise, and the last to do with sanitation matters. Let me bring in the gentleman who I'll be having today's discussion with. I have Salama Danu, is head of features and articles here at City FM and City TV. Salam, welcome.
Vivian, thank you.
Nice bow tie.
Thank you.
Then I have Duke Wesopoko, he's head of the presidential parliamentary press corps. He leads our parliamentary decks here at City FM and City TV. Also the host of the Chamber and Press Conference. wearing a nice African print shirt. Is that Kente? Looks like Kente. Welcome, Duke.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so gentlemen, I think we should start with the registration exercise because a lot has come from it. Quite a number of figures we're looking at. In the end, we're seeing 16.9 million, a few hundred short of the 17 million, mark. Earlier, the AC had its own predictions of what figures it was looking at. The NDC had, the NPP had. We're seeing 16.9. But the figures we're seeing and what we're told for the reason to have, compiled this new register, is the EC justified in doing this exercise, looking at the numbers? Duke.
Well, the Electoral Commission stated that they were compiling this register for technical and financial considerations. Technical considerations in the sense that essentially the new management, or let me say the new team at the helm of affairs at the Electoral Commission, right from the time they took office, indicated that they were not comfortable with the biometric verification system or the voter management system that they came to, they came to meet in office, if I may put it that way, essentially, and that they were not comfortable with the IT infrastructure there. Essentially, they did not have a way of, having control over what was there. And the argument essentially was that they could not guarantee a free and fair election if, as the electoral management body or as the referee in conducting the elections, they do not have control over the system, because the IT infrastructure was not the best. The biometric verification machines had reached the end of their shelf life, and the system is not one that it was defective, and essentially that would have an effect on the elections that they wanted to conduct. So it is on this basis that they proceeded, and even with the financial considerations, they indicated that it would cost more to replace or try and reconfigure and better the current system.
Well, they also said that the law was bloated.
Yes, they also said that it was bloated. That was one of the considerations. But it being bloated was to them as a result of a lot of issues that have occurred over the years, over the period. Now, they have conducted this exercise. They've come up to the point of having some 16.9 million people on the register. And I would say that at this point in time, it's provisional, because they have not gone through all the processes that is required to make it a certified registration or a certified register. In the next few months, there's going to be an exhibition, which would be for people to go and look through and confirm their details. There would also be an opportunity, for the political parties to look at the voter management system or the registration system itself that has been put in place, to find out whether they have any issues with it or not. As to whether the voter management system or the register is bloated, well, we can't have a voter register that is 100% or perfect. 100% perfect. There will always be challenges with it. But as to whether the question is the voter register a fair reflection of the number of people in the country who are voting age? That's the question, or that's the legitimate question to be asked. From the perspective of the Electoral Commission, they think that at this point in time they've been able to they have put in place a voter register that has you know, the best. That is very good. Even though they have conceded.
But they've considered that
there are still minors there.
People doing the multiple registration. We still had quite some challenges, and those figures, I'm trying to look for those figures of people like that. So, still a bit back to them.
There are still problems. There are still problems with it, which they must rectify. But as to whether they can do that, it boils down back to the systems that they have or the system that they have put in place.
Okay.
I think that if you look at the technical considerations, they have not been able to convince us. They've not been able to convince anybody that based on the numbers that they've put out, in terms of satisfying that this register is better than what they put in place previously, they've not been able to convince us. Okay. Because based on what they have said, yesterday there was a briefing where they put out the numbers. Information and data has been good. They put it out there because of that. The analysis has been stronger. People can now, you know, it's good. But as to the justification as to why, from where they started up until now, I don't think that they've done a good job. They've not been able to convince anybody as to whether they have been able to do a better register. No, in terms of where they set off from.
Okay,
no.
Salom, do you also agree that at the end of the day, from the provisional results we have and from what we've been told by the Commission, they've done a great one or not at getting a better register for us?
I think my position when this debate started really was I didn't think that compiling a new voters register was the most important thing to do right now. But the EC was insistent. They kept arguing that the register was not a good one to work with on two fronts. That one, it was technically obsolete, so they could not guarantee that the register could see us through the next election. Number two, they said the register was bloated. When they were taking on the technical argument that you don't need to replace everything, we saw that they gradually shifted and got big rather on the bloated side of things. So as we speak, the argument about the technical obsoleteness of it is actually diminished, or it actually diminished before the process started itself. Now, a lot of it was hinged on the bloated nature of it. And the bloated nature of it was due to the fact that, or they claimed, that there were a lot of people on it, the minors. And I don't know whether those people will still remain minors, because over the years, if those people indeed were on it, they would have grown.
So 4 years.
So now it became an argument that there were a lot of foreigners on the register.
Yeah.
And this whole thing about foreigners, I think it's something we'll talk about a bit later. But I don't think it's been handled well because of the nuances, you know, involved in that. So in 2016, the register had 15.71%. Sorry, million. 15.71 million people. In 2020, we are hearing provisional of 16.96%. Last year, during the limited voter registration exercise, we arrived at a figure of 16.84%. But when you look at the trend, even right from 92 to date, there hasn't been any much difference. So my view is that when you look at the 2016 figure, 15.71, and a lot of people haven't really talked about the mortality rate or the death rate. A lot of people die every year. And over a 4-year period, the number of people who die, when you take them out of it, and you work, you also look at the number of people you add to it. Let's say the 2019 figure has new people added to it, people who turned 18 in 2019. But we've not had a lot of people who died taken off, because people don't normally go and say, my person has died, so take the person off. There are a lot of those people on this register. And if you consider a death rate of around 7%, which is what I think the figure is, you work it on the population of 30 million, that is quite a number of people, about 200,000 people, multiplied by 4 years. I mean, I'm just doing it crudely. You realize that you get a very high figure. So when you, about 800,000 or more, when you look at that figure, you can easily set it off against the new number of people who registered this, which is around 700,000. So I don't think the argument about the bloated nature of the register was a very sustainable argument. But the EC being the EC and claiming or touting their independence, etc., had their way. Some of us thought that the over $100 million they spent on this expenditure could have been used for other things. Nonetheless, it's been done. Now we hear that the register still has issues. We don't expect it to be a 100% clean register. The same points they raised towards the latter part of the argument, that it was bloated because there were minors and foreigners on it. We're hearing the same arguments again, that some foreigners are on it, and number two, we have minors on it. So they are still going to go through a process of cleaning it up. So the question is, did we go or did we come? And then that process of cleaning it, I want to understand it better, because we know that before you take somebody off the register, that person must go through a certain adjudication process. So are they going to sit in their offices and take people off arbitrarily, or they are going to engage those people and hear them before they do?
Okay.
I don't know whether they've explained that, and I didn't hear, but as I sit here, I don't know how that process is going to be carried out. It will not be proper for them to sit in their offices and just arbitrarily take people out because they assume those people are minors and those people are foreigners. There's a reason why we have polling officers or party agents, etc., at the place. Their duty is to look out for those things. I don't have a problem if those people got onto the register by whatever means. But the process to be used in taking those people off the register must be fair. So my point is, we need a system. We need to understand whether a system of adjudication will be set up to
well, they set up a committee for the adjudication.
So they're going to call all those people who they claim have bloated the register. I don't know the number, but if they are 20,000 or 100,000, they're going to hear from everybody before they do that.
Let me quickly read this adjudication thing. What there is, it's quite lengthy, but I'll try. It says the EC has also, we all know they inaugurated a voter registration adjudication committee to help expunge the names of multiple registrants from the voters register. Now, the 60-member multi-stakeholder committee, which was inaugurated by the chairperson of the EC on Wednesday, August 5th this year, are to manually determine the eligibility of persons who have been flagged for multiple registration through the duplication process to be on the voter roll. Now, the committee was constituted in compliance with regulations 27 of the Public Elections Registration of Voters Regions 2016, which states that the commission shall certify the register after determination of claims of objection. Now, according to Regulation 27.2, the procedure for certifying the register includes matching of the fingerprint. I'm not sure we need all that. So basically, they will determine whether or not to pull them off or not.
Yes, so I think they didn't really address the issue of foreigners or minors. What they are addressing in that portion you read has to do with people who registered multiple times. Of course, if it's proven that people registered multiple times, you can take them off. You can take the surplus off, if you like, because their fingerprints will be the same. So that's easy to find.
Okay, let me quickly go through that one. It says, as part of processes to determine the eligibility of challenge applicants, the EC has also activated processes through the district review committees to sit on the challenge names on the case-by-case basis.
Very well. So if that is there, then I'm fine, because the claims of objection.
Yeah.
So once you say there are claims, it means there's somebody saying that I know this person is a foreigner, or have proved that this person is a minor and the person is on the register, which means you have to call the person like we saw in the registration process. So if that is done, that is fine. My other interest, so that's fine. You know, that's just my issue. That's my issue with the register. I thought that we could have just done a registration of the new people, the 18-year-olds or the new entrants, and then would have been fine. However, I think the registration or the figures or the data we've had have, you know, opened our eyes to new things, or the data has exposed us to new things. I'm not sure whether they are particularly new, but maybe kudos to the EC for the manner they have communicated, you know, the data and everything. I think
they've been good with provision of data.
Exactly. So, for example, 16.96 million people. We hear that 48.27% of the total constitute male, and 51.73, almost around 600,000
more women on the roll
than the men are women. not very surprising because even population-wise, we have more women than men.
Yeah.
But what this means is it gives the parties a clearer, view of where the issues or what the issues should be for specific people. So today, for example, I had the NDC running with Professor Nana Jinopoko and make the point that when they come, or if they come, they will increase the maternity leave period from 3 months to 4 months. So right away, that is targeting this extra 600,000 people who are women, so that is good. There's talk about daycare centers, talks about who constructed what market, talk about maternity leave, which I just mentioned, etc. So you see that all these are things targeted at the woman, a specific group of people. I think the breakdown of this makes that point. So we also saw that about 762,000 of the registrants are 18-year-olds, and about 612,000 of them are 19-year-olds.
Yeah.
What that also means is that there's quite, between these two, we have about 1.3 million voters. That's quite a number. Young people who are going to be voting for the first time in the presidential election. So it tells you that if the political parties are serious, that's a huge number of people they can target, because now we know the number. That is why in the past few days, we've had heightened conversations about free SHS. I will review it. I will do it better. No, you cannot review it because you didn't even believe in it in the first time. So you can't do it better than somebody who dreamt it and who is implementing it. There may be challenges, but we dreamt it, so we are able to do it better. That's why these conversations are coming, because they realize that there are quite a lot of people in that bracket whose views and whose preferences on issues may not necessarily be the same as you and I. So I think that the way the data is being captured and broken down gives the political parties a clearer view of really what is at stake and how they should go ahead and do it.
So let's look at the regional breakdowns if we can. So we're seeing the Central Greater Accra North in getting the most numbers. So Central gained 160,000, 12.80% gain there. Greater Accra region 445,815. That's 35.64% gain. And then the Northern region 203,663, 16.28% gain. Now, do we know what's accounted for these huge numbers for these three regions?
Well, for the Greater Accra region, I think it's, and some of the political parties have said it openly, that was also part of their strategy not to let people register where they lived and not to travel. So I think that would predominantly account for why, for instance, for the Greater Accra, because of course, the era in which we are also in also played a huge part. The coronavirus, people traveling, and that is also an issue that accounted for a lot more people not traveling as they would to their constituencies or to the places where they originally vote to do that. Also, I think that that's what would account for the numbers predominantly in the Greater Accra region. Central region, most now. There are lots of people in the Kaswa enclave now, and it's almost Kaswa and Accra almost together.
My cousin.
Together now. So that would, and if people are not moving from Accra to their constituencies and they are staying in the Central region, is like the first. Kaswa is the first place you move out from away from Accra. And you have the numbers there, and even look at how the Kaswa is one of the places that recorded one of the not so good stories about this.
Around the registration.
Yes, the registration exercise, the MPO fired shots in the air and all of that. So I think that would account for the numbers in the Greater Accra region, and then in the Central region.
Northern, do we know?
Northern. Well, if you look at the gains,
they were 1.4 million in the 2016 final register. They now have 1.6.
Well, if we're not going to attribute it to the population growth, then I really don't. I think that the curious case is also that of the Volta region, where the numbers were just
the losers.
Just
so
500
with your thoughts for that.
508. Apart from that, also, I think that we probably may come to that. But what has been a real blot on the process so far has been the incidences of violence in places from Banda to Grand Kwanta to Asawasi and the rest. I think that all of those issues should be treated as the criminal cases that they are. The political parties should not, try and, it's said that in this country, the easiest way to let issues go off is to give it political coloration, to make it MPP and NDC.
Okay.
They should be treated as the criminal cases that they are, so that the law enforcement agencies would deal with them as they ought to. But apart from that, Kodeo, which looked at the exercise across the country, has marked the Electoral Commission some 80%, which means that it's an exercise that is fairly good. At this point in time, the processes have been rolled out. There would be those who have been challenged. There's a process to look at how you can get a fair hearing to get back on the register and all of that. The issues of criminality should be dealt with as a matter of criminality and not be politicized.
Okay, so Central region, Greater Accra, Northern region, are these three regions going to be the battlefields for the two major political parties in Western Park?
Well, I think it depends. Greater Accra certainly a battleground. Central region also certainly a battleground. Northern region is fairly an NDC stronghold, though the NPP has made quite some good inroads in the last election also. But Central region, we know. Greater Accra region, we know. So whoever carries Greater Accra region, and I think Central region wins the election. That's the trend so far. It doesn't mean necessarily, because in Greater Accra region, for example, you don't. The difference is often not much. Maybe it's between maybe 42 and then 42 and then 58%. I'm giving a very wide spread. So it could be anybody's game. It's not like an Eastern or Ashanti or Volta or Northern region where you have a very clear winner. Central behaves in a very interesting way. When they are going, all of them go. When they are coming, all of them come. So yes, Greater Accra, given the numbers, and then Central region, given how that region behaves, will be very important to look at. Because of the numbers in the Greater Accra region, I think what the parties will want to be doing is to try and do very well there, so that even if you have a 1, 2, 3 even percentage points, because of the huge numbers, those few percentage points will mean a lot in absolute numbers.
Yeah.
So let's say if you lead in Greater Accra by, let's say, 2-3%, it may be even better than you losing in a region by, let's say, 6 or even to 10% because of the numbers there. So Greater Accra is where the action is where the people are. And it's in the past that we used to say that the numbers are in the rural areas. It's no more the case. We have a lot of areas now becoming peri-urban. So we have the Kaswa, and we have the Botiano areas, and we have other areas like the Dodowa and then the Pram areas, all becoming very peri-urban. In the past, they would have been rural, and so we will say the numbers are there. Now, it is no more the case. So, battlegrounds is Greater Accra always, and Central region, yes. But Northern region, I'm not sure it's a serious battleground, because it is fairly a stronghold of a party. Of course, the parties, as it is in every stronghold, will want to consolidate their against and even improve, while the opposition or the opposition in that region, or the opponent of the stronghold party, will want to increase their tally, though they may not really intend to win it. But a thought just occurred about this adjudication thing we were talking about quickly before. We don't know how it's going to be. Of course, we know it's illegal to have double names on the register. We are told that duplicate names, there'll be a system to clean it up. How is it going to be like? So if my name appears twice and it's proved that I've registered twice, are both names going to be taken out, or one is going to be taken out and the other left? Of course, there are punishments for it, so I have to be punished. But does it mean that
You'll be taken out
I'll be
fully?
taken out completely? I think the EC has not explained, enough for us, and I've never heard it at all. We need to have an understanding into what that really means. So I think that is my thought on that.
Okay, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll look at the losers. We'll look at Volta region, adding only about 508 voters to its role over there, and why that happened, and if based on what we saw during the registration exercise, we may have disenfranchised some Voltarians or not. We'll look at those issues when we come back. Don't go away.
So I want us to have more of the conversation about you growing up when we get to the farm.
Yes.
Because I know that you're a farmer at heart. That's where home is for you. And I think being in that space will bring the memories back.
I think the interaction was within the family, within the community, and you are not going to cities that time. So your life was essentially from that community that you grew up in, village. You went to the local schools, and the interaction was between the school, the farm, and the community. And discipline was not just for the parent or for it was every adult in the community had the right to discipline every other child. So the child was actually community's child. So I dropped all those subjects altogether and went for anthropology.
Anthropology?
Yes.
Okay.
So that was a new subject at the university. It was just introduced that year. So there was that department of anthropology that was introduced. I went and looked at what the course looked like. And I told myself, you know what, working with the communities and looked interesting, and the subjects really related to your interaction, because anthropology is really the study of man in a social and physical environment.
Yeah.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
So yeah, welcome back to what the papers are saying. My name is Vivian Kai. Look, now you can join the conversation. You can send us a message via WhatsApp on 0023355058582. That is 0023355058582. So Abdul from Tamale has sent a message. He says the new voters register is highly credible as compared to the West African register that was claimed to be Ghana's voters register. Kudos to the EC and the government for such a brilliant initiative, you say. So we'll welcome your messages and we'll read them when you send them. But guys, let's look at the losers. I'm looking at the figures for all the regions, and my mind takes me to the Volta region. In 2016, for the final register, their number was about 1.2 million, so specifically 1,282,306. Today, based on the provisional results, they are 1,284,804, adding only 508, accumulating to 0.04% of voters gained. Salam. Your thoughts about this small figure?
Well, I think it's unfortunate, and I won't mince words at all. I think one of the unfortunate legacies of this registration exercise is to, I wouldn't say, is to increase acrimony, between certain group of people and what maybe I'll call the system or the EC. And when you talk about system, then you mean the officialdom. So there's been allegations here and there about a certain ploy to suppress registrants from a certain part of the country or certain people. I think it is important to have a credible register. It's important to have just Ghanaians on the register. That is something we all want to happen, and that's what we all expect. But when it appears that the actions of the EC or the system appear, and I'm choosing my words well, appear or seem to be favoring a certain view that it is being done to suppress vote from a certain part of the country or to question the nationality of certain people, I think it's wrong. There are a number of factors or issues that should have been looked at properly, the nuances, I call them. So we talk about Ketu South. Ketu South is a border town, and Ketu South and Lome, the situation or the relationship there is quite peculiar because unlike Elubo and other border towns we have in other parts of the country, Lome is the capital city of Togo. So that is supposed to be the most urbanized place in Togo. And then Aflau, I can say, is a bit urbanized because of one, it's a border town, and number two, because it's close to Lome, which is the capital city of Togo. So the same way I can live in Kaswa and want to come to Accra to work every day because this is the capital city and this is where things work and this is where the jobs are. Somebody living in Aflau, forget the fact that it's a border town, it's just an imaginary line really, may live in Aflau but work in Lome. So when I live in Aflau or any part close to the border and I work in Lome, and after a while I think it's better for me to move there and work because we often speak the same language, etc. And because I work there and so I can speak French, etc., I'm Ghanaian. Because I live and work there, you brand me as a Togolese or a foreigner, for which reason I have no right to register to be part of the registered voters in Ghana. I think that is unfortunate. The fact that we're told that soldiers were deployed to border towns, trying to stop people, foreigners from coming into the country because of COVID, because we heard that. That COVID argument couldn't be sustained because we had other border towns in the country. Not all the border towns saw such numbers of soldier deployments, Even granted, soldiers deployed. Granted, we had same numbers of soldiers deployed across. I've seen videos where DCs or MCs were touring registration centers, followed by soldiers, and asking people to move out of the queue because they were not Ghanaians. That is not the law. That is not the process. Let the person register. If you have a challenge, raise the challenge. It's for good reason that the law says that you challenge the person.
But it appears this with this registration exercise, I don't remember the last one we did, the challenge system was not adhered to. And like you're saying, authorities were the ones who were really going contrary to the challenge system. Why did we see that?
And that's so unfortunate. So that's why I'm saying that it will be difficult to fault somebody who has experienced it, saying that the process was meant to suppress voters from a certain part. It will be difficult to dispute that because a lot of people have lived it. So that's one. Number two, the borders were shut because of COVID. It wasn't interesting that we discussed and even put in place measures to bring in people from overseas, from the US, from UAW, etc., Ghanaians who were stranded there, to come back home. But just across the border, where we could even use a bus to get our citizens or Ghanaians, properly so-called, into Ghana, we didn't do that because of things like this. Because it's even more expensive getting a plane from Dubai or UAE to Ghana and US to Ghana, of course, they will pay. It's easier getting a few buses across the borders to Cote d'Ivoire, to Togo, to Burkina Faso, to bring our people, because they are our people. Once you prove that they are our people, that's it. We didn't do any of that because we thought that people who live along the border, you know, belong to a certain tradition. I think the way it was handled left a lot of sour taste in people's mouth. And I don't think it's good necessarily for the system. The fact that people were moving from police station or registration centers to registration centers, identifying people not Ghanaian so-called, I think was wrong.
Okay.
The process should have been made to work. When they register, like the challenge them, put them before the adjudication committee, ask them what the questions were, let them prove it.
Okay.
We are hearing that the guarantor system even gave the opportunity for a lot of those people to register. Now, the register we are saying is credible, still has issues. So I'm saying that the way that was handled, in my view, was not the best.
Okay. Duke, how differently should they have handled this matter?
Well, the system should have worked. If, for instance, the guarantor system is what, because I mean, right from the start, and the argument was clear, or the position was quite clear that not a lot of people were going to have access to use the passports and the Ghana card. Well, from the figures, we see that 60% of Ghanaians used, or 60% of those who are on the provisional register use the Ghana card, 1.9% the passport, and about 39% use the guarantor system, which means that after the Ghana card, the guarantor system was next. And so in the voter region, that's something that could have been explored quite well. But as we've seen in registration exercises like this, the atmosphere in which the process happens also plays a very key role.
Yeah.
So if you are running a registration process in a place, surrounded by military men, surrounded by policemen, and with the certain notion that, well, probably they could just be doing their work, guarding borders and the rest, but playing into the whole, sentiments about what had been said before the registration exercise, and there is a plan to disenfranchise people and all of that, would, for want of a better word, poison the atmosphere, and people who will even be willing to go and register may decide to
not to go.
Not to go. So that may have played a part in getting to the point where, as we have it now, in terms of the marginal numbers, we have just about 508 increment in terms of that. That can be interpreted in different ways depending on where you stand. Some may say that is a proof that indeed there were people on the register who were not supposed to be there. Others would also say that it's because of the allegations or it's because of the voter suppression. That is why the numbers are the way that they are.
Okay.
If there are, the Electoral Commissioner has said that there are supposed cases of foreigners there, people who are still on the challenge, people whose nationality are being challenged and all of that. I would ask that the Electoral Commission makes its process as fair as it has to be, so that you would give all those who have been challenged the opportunity to prove their citizenship. Because when we begin to get into this, the issue of whether this person is the issue of citizenship, it goes just beyond citizenship, but also goes to the issue of sovereignty and who has the right to elect who will lead the country and all of that. I think that in terms of the processes the communication was not done very well, and the processes have not been handled very well, and at this point in time, it looks like the allegations of voter suppression in a way seem to be true in terms of the numbers that we have.
Okay, our time is coming close, so let me quickly take a few messages, then we'll move to the, unfortunately, we have to move to the Siwa story. But David Blesson from Saboba says, we should know that we can never have 100% register without it being bloated. Let us all know that the EC is an independent body and have Ghanaians at heart. Delakwashi says the old register had minors and foreigners, so we needed a new one. It was done with a lot of risk and money, but the new one too has minors and foreigners as admitted by the EC itself. So where is the change and what is new? And what is the achievement here? Also, Kojo from Abidjan, Cote d'Ivoire says, how credible is this voters register when we have acknowledged that some non-Ghanaians do have the Ghana card and the Ghana passport? How credible is a voters register when Ghanaians in neighboring countries with valid Ghana cards and Ghana passports were not allowed to come to Ghana to register? Tell me, is this a trustworthy voters register? You ask. So guys, I have to wrap up on the
let me make a
voter
quick
register.
point.
Okay,
I think nobody is saying that the voter register is not credible. I think that point, or we are not around this, program saying the voters register is not credible. Like it says, we have the benefit of hindsight now, etc. We're saying that we thought a few things could have been done better. What we have is what we have now. What is important is to rally behind it and make it work. Because if we doubt the document inside going into our election, that is a recipe for disaster. And I'll call on the EC to work hard to win the trust of all players in this election. One thing you don't want is to be going into an election with the entrenched view that the referee is taking sides. The EC doesn't need that. And I think they have what it takes to be fair. They have what it takes to bring everybody on board. They have what it takes to ensure that the IPAC system, which is an innovative system we've built for ourselves, works, because it's worked over the years. And there's no reason why it should not be working this time.
Okay. So let's move to Tema, if we can, on the sewer system there, where yesterday we brought a feature from Tema where some residents were demanding a total overhaul of the poor sewer system there. Shocking videos we saw there, Duke.
Yeah, I think it's a disgrace that over 60 years after a city was planned, very nice with all of its systems, the current crop of governments, successive governments that this, Nkrumah in his day planned this, executed it very nicely, and a basic necessity of life, disposing of waste. We cannot manage it. We cannot manage that. I think it's disgraceful on the part of the current crop of, leaders in the last 20 to 30 years to have allowed such rot to fester over this number of years, and it has to take citizens' action and a report to get their minds back. Because from the look of things, if this report had not been done, it will not get the attention.
Most people wouldn't have known.
Be talking
and
about it. And
we are told this thing has been happening for the past 30 years or so.
Yes, so it's sad. And if you go through all our textbooks, lack of maintenance culture is something that everybody talks about. We all studied it in school. That is one of the systemic failures of managing infrastructure in our country, lack of maintenance culture. But how have we used that to solve the problem? And we are talking about just $60 million to fix a problem that if there had been a proper maintenance system, it wouldn't cost us so much to do that.
Okay, Solomon.
Well, sanitation, very important. And if a country cannot deal with matters of its sanitation, then you wonder what the country really can do. The issue of sanitation is not a today matter. Like Luke is saying, we've read in textbooks that lack of maintenance culture is our bane, or it's been the problem Ghana has had. We studied it in school. Many people before us also studied it in school. Why are we not able to transfer that knowledge we acquire in school into real life? We are not able to maintain what we have, but we are quick to promise to do more in terms of building new ones. If we cannot maintain what we have, there's no point really in rushing to go and start new ones. When Tema was built, in fact, it was built as a planned city for a certain number of people. It's been many, many years, decades after, there's almost a population explosion in Tema. Houses meant for just maybe 5 to 6 people, you now realize is how are housing about 10 to 15 people. When that happens, there's pressure on your sewage system. There's pressure. That is what we are seeing. And it's unfortunate that this is happening. There's a TDC, the Tema Development Corporation. There's a TMA, Tema, now Metropolitan Assembly. And the people have to be suffering themselves to get these things fixed. You know, what then is the work of the Municipal Assembly? What does the TDC do? And I heard Osafo Mafu today, Senior Minister Osafo Mafu today at the, is it the Lavender Hill area. You know, speaking to the project manager there, that sanitation and sewage management, etc., is the duty of the state, and that the state or the state or government will help them to ensure that these things are fixed. That is good. It's good that politicians or our leaders recognize that it's not everything that the citizen can do for himself. And it's part of the social contract. I cannot construct my own road. I cannot build my own hospital. I cannot build my own market. If I build my own market, I won't go and sit there and be trading just with myself. So some things are done by the state. That is why we give them our vote and our taxes. You know, that is the social contract. So when I give you that, you give me this. So when I deliver on my part by paying taxes and doing everything that the contract says I should do, you must ensure that you deliver on yours too. What we are seeing is a breach on their part. They are not delivering on their side of the bargain. It makes no sense why in the 21st century people in a place like Tema will be living in that deplorable situation. Let me quickly add this. Tema is not part of Accra. We heard that Accra, by the end of the 4-year term, was going to be made the cleanest city in Africa. That promise was
we are told now 80%
was repeated many times.
Has been achieved.
The same minister who said 80% has been achieved said that it will not be achieved in this term, but maybe the next term. Now we are told 80%, in fact 85%. And I'm asking that which part of Accra is a minister, does a minister tall? And she said that, didn't you see how clean Accra was during the lockdown, etc.? Yes, because people were not in town, so when you clean it tomorrow, the following day, nobody comes to mess up the place. I've said it many times, that the essence of government or leadership is to, one, ensure that laws are enforced, amongst other things. So if, you know, there should be education, but in this sanitation matters, littering, etc., I think we've had quite some amount of education. We must move to enforcement. Why were the places clean during the lockdown? Because nobody was in town. So we make the places dirty. So if we are refusing to keep the place clean, there should be law who should put us in check. And the law enforcement is part of the executive. So the executive must enforce the law. Sanitation goes beyond just littering and having rubbish in the corners. When you have a capital city where more than half or about half of its residents do not have places of convenience, that is a big headache. That is something we must solve. So we can't say that we want to be the cleanest city in Africa unless we are ready to solve all these problems. We must improve on our recycling efforts. We must improve on our landfills efforts, etc. When all these things come together and we have, you know, a good rubbish collection system, etc., then we know that we are moving towards it. But for now, it only remains promises and talk. Okay,
thank you very much, Salim Abdul, head of features and articles here at City FM and City TV, and also Duke Mensa Opoku, our presidential parliamentary. Why do I keep saying presidential? Our parliamentary correspondent, also hosts the chamber here on City TV. When we come back, we have Vivian's view. Don't go away. Now, it is appalling and disheartening that Tema, a well-planned community touted as a reference point for planned communities today, has become a pale shadow of itself. I watched in shock and disbelief a report filed by City News' Caleb Kuda detailing the public health risk and environmental hazards occasioned by the dysfunctional central sewage systems in Tema. I couldn't have imagined for once the shame our fellow Ghanaians, including senior citizens, are subjected to due to years of neglect. In the face of population growth and the changing face of city planning and management, are we saying no one thought about, one, the need to keep what was handed over to us well maintained, Are we saying no one saw the need to overhaul a central sewage system that had served its purpose? Are we saying that no one took notice of emerging technologies to enhance waste treatment? And no one over the years worked to attract critical investors, local and foreign, to address such an important and basic need? It beats my mind that residents will flush out sanitary pads and other foreign materials in their toilets and expect their pipes to flow freely. It also beats my mind that squatters will erect structures on sewer lines and expect truck drivers to comfortably extract the contents of chambers. But if someone gets paid for planning, how did that person fail to see the need to advocate and see through decent and affordable housing in the face of urban sprawl? Now, if someone has been given the responsibility to educate and the power to effect arrest of persons whose activities threaten our collective well-being, how did squatters take over car parks on their blind side? How did recalcitrant residents manage to beat the rest of us by choking our drains with foreign material? By the way, did you see how untreated fecal matter is released into water bodies? Did you see how the color of the lagoon and the sea changed dramatically because of the release of toxic chemical materials into the open? Our fecal matter is released into the sea, untreated, and our fisher folk catch from the same parts of the sea for us to eat. And our little children swim in the same sea, polluted by our fecal matter. We've been given all the energies to coronavirus, a necessary fight we must win. But aren't we nursing our own epidemic? Now, Tema is a pride to the nation, but is sitting on a ticking time bomb, only waiting to explode in our faces. That is why this matter is an issue that should be of national concern, because as a port city like Tema affects all of us in one way or the other. Now, the Ministries of Works and Housing, Sanitation, as well as the Tema Development Corporation must show leadership in getting the right investments, right policies, and right attitudes in correcting this menace. Structures erected on the channels of the sewer, including those of squatters and proper households, must be cleared to make way for their reconstruction. It is crucial that authorities must protect these channels moving forward to prevent us from getting back to the situation we find ourselves in currently. It is obvious that authorities also did a poor job in maintaining these channels, because if they did, they would have moved in to stop people from building on them. And also, there must be a proper maintenance strategy from authorities in managing the community's sewer system. This has been Vivian's View. My name is Vivian Kai Loco. Thank you for watching What the Papers Are Saying. Goodbye.